What is the best furry con? This is a crazy problem. How do we even solve it? Would we just do a popularity contest and say megaplex? I have no idea. On Twitter and Instagram, I asked you what you think the best furry con is. Very simply. Some of you responded with like a really precise answer, like, Anthrocon, that's your favorite furry con. And other people were more wishy-washy, and they were like, I can't choose between my favorite local con or this other big one I go to occasionally. I think that's all really interesting. Let's go ahead and tabulate that data together and see what interesting data results we can get from it. This won't be a perfectly bias-free sample size. We're not a scientist. I'm not worried. That's not a big deal. It can come to some really interesting conclusions though, and I'm excited to see what the data says. The first step to solving the problem of what is the best furry con is to get some data. On Twitter and Instagram, I asked you very simply, what is your favorite furry con? And then you guys answered with just about everything. We need to take those human words and sentences and phrases and tweets and translate that into digital machine-read data. For the vast majority of people, they answered this question very simply. BLFC is their favorite convention. Easy, we can add a point to BLFC, slam dunk, we have a data point here. But the vast majority of people answer the question like this. They love FC, TFF, and BLFC. Those are all great conventions in their eyes. They're all their favorite. In this case, I say that we should instead give a point to all three of those conventions. This will make our data set a little less precise, but I think it'll speak better to the general idea of what is the best furry convention. And besides, at the end of the day, that's how you responded to the question with. Now that we've gone ahead and recorded all of your responses, we ended up with a total of 125 unique conventions mentioned, and you're about 100 comments. Some of the more tech savvy out there are going to start screaming at me in 2 seconds. What we're going to do to solve this next part of the problem is use JavaScript. I know there's going to be a way to do it with Excel in 2 seconds. I have no idea what it is. And unfortunately, when all you know how to use is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. The problem that we need to solve is we need to figure out how many times each con has come up. So for example, how many people said Anthrocon as their favorite convention? Right now we just have a list of just conventions. We need to convert that into real usable data. The first thing we need to do is figure out how many times each convention shows up in that list. I don't want to make this a programming channel at all, but we can at least talk about the code for 2 seconds. What this line here does is it pulls in our data that we just created. Then this section of code here simply counts the number of times each convention occurs in our data set. This section of code here then reorders our data set such that the highest number of occurrences is the first one. And then finally, this whole block of code down here, all it does is it renders it out to the user on the screen. So let's actually see what conventions mentioned the first. Before we start playing with the data, I'd please ask you to like and subscribe. It does so much to help show your support for this channel, and it does wonders helping me create new videos for you. At the end of this video, I'll be talking about the next big fursuit project. I've been having a lot of fun in this new video style making content. I think it's been really cool. Let's see what data turned out from our little data set. Anthrocon and Midwest Fur Fest being at the very top of this list is no shocker to anyone. They are the biggest cons. People are always talking about them. People are hyped to go. They're the best. They really are. Everyone loves them. People travel around the world to go to these conventions. When Midwest Fur Fest finally topped Anthrocon's numbers a few years ago, that was so hype. Biggest Little Fur Con, I feel like, is the con to go to. I don't think I've ever met in my life a single person that hasn't had a great time at this convention. There's just so much to do. It's such a cool convention. I'd love to go. Furry Week in Atlanta, I feel like it's like Biggest Little Fur Con. It was for a long time with the bigger brother, but now it feels like it's really kind of hanging in there and cheering on Biggest Little Fur Con because it's doing so well. These are both huge party cons. They happen like a week of each other. It's people either go to one or the other. It's such a shame. They're both so good. Megaplex at 5 is almost certainly an outlier. I live in Florida. I have a ton of friends that are local. It's our local con here in town. It probably is just an outlier of this data, though it is a great con. And then we have like this block. We have Further Confusion, Anthro Northeast, Texas Furry Fiesta, Furrinal Equinox, and Denver. Those are all like the big American regional cons. Like, if you're going to Denver, it's probably because you live in like Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico. You live in that whole area, you're just gonna drive up to Denver. That's true for much all these conventions. They're just big American cons. Once we hit on 11 and all these kind of threesies, we're just generally hitting big cons now. Eurofurence, I truthfully don't know much about it. It's over in the EU somewhere. I think it rotates on location wise. Motor City FurCon is a con I personally have never heard of, so that's a cool one. Nordic FurCon, these are all smaller cons. They have, they're really dedicated little local communities. They're all great. On the very bottom of this list, we have a lot of the super small local cons that people don't really typically travel for. So like Painted Desert FurCon, which is a con I've actually been to out in Phoenix. Gateway Furry, which is St. Louis's convention. We have Camp Barrel in here, which is really cool. We have a ton of cool Aussie cons. Fur Out West, Furry Aussie Furfest. It's kind of a tongue twister there. And then Furdo. It's really crazy that we had 30 unique entries out of about 100 different votes. So it just goes to show you just how dominant the conventions at top are. So does this actually answer our question? Is Anthrocon and Midwest Fur Fest actually the best convention out there? Well, best is really subjective, up to you, but what we can say is that Anthrocon and MFF are definitely the most popular conventions out there that people are excited about. It's also going to show us that BLFC's meteoric rise to fame isn't just based on hot wind. People love that convention. People are super excited about it, and honestly, everyone I know says they have a great time. I would love to go. It's also, there's probably some things to think about too, is that our data is very North American centric. I'm sure if a European did this exact same test and same methodology, it'd have a very different result. My followers on Twitter are very American, they all live locally. There's gonna be some huge biases here. This isn't a real educational data set, this is just something for fun. Another interesting thing that you could do with this data is correlate it to a population set for each convention. So, is there really just a trend of MFF, Anthrocon, BLFC are the most popular conventions, so they're going to be the ones that show up the most in this list? Probably. I don't actually know the answer to that. I would be hesitant to say anything definite, but probably. That being said, again, this wasn't a scientific test. This was just us having fun, exploring some data, and seeing what conclusions we could come from it. So we prove it beyond a shadow of doubt. The scientifically, objectively proven with all the statistics in the world, Anthrocon/Midwest Fur Fest is the best convention out there. Just full stop. I don't know if we've actually learned anything important from this, but we had fun making it. That's the important part. Showing this cool process off, how we can take a random tweet and turning it into some interesting data that we can play around with, is a lot of fun. If you've made it this far, I have a lot of really cool ideas in the future, including how to make the world's best ref sheet. That might be the next video idea. But please subscribe, like, comment. It helps out so much. If you think you've learned something from this, please leave a comment and tell me what. I read all your comments. You guys leave so many of them. I really do read them all. I moved you to the other room. So as you can see behind me, I'm moving. Right now, I can't start any projects like a new fursuit until after I get moved. The plan is, once then and once settled down, to start filming a totally new fursuit from scratch. We'll do each major segment of the fursuit as its own video. So for example, an entire video of just the planning and the character ref, an entire video of picking fur swatches, an entire video of just doing the foam head. It'll be broken up somewhat like that, not 100% sure yet. I'll probably start that in maybe a month, maybe 2 months. I'm having a lot of fun making these videos now, but this is just a stopgap until I get after moved and settled in, and I can really start focusing on creating new projects. Again, thank you so much. I love your support. It helps out so much. I love doing these videos. It's so much fun, and I'm glad that you guys can kind of join along with me. Thanks again. See you later.